But the people on the right, like Mark Levin, and there's a segment of influencers that are like, oh, nothing to see here, nothing with Epstein, just move on. And it's Mark Levin, Laura Loomer, Ben Shapiro. And then you start to look at like, what's the common thread here? That's weird. They're all Jewish. And Epstein had ties to Israel and their intelligence. And we keep kowtowing to whatever a very small little country wants. I know you saw the Ted Cruz thing with Tucker Carlson. This guy is trying to justify it by being biblically illiterate. And it's like, what is all of this? And there's a lot of people, noticing, as we like to call it. But what are your thoughts on like the MAGA base being too red-pilled? I think it's a good thing to be lied to even by their quote-unquote leader.
Yeah, so I think that a large part of this is a generational issue. So look, secularism is a giant lie. Every society is religious.
Yes.
And there's always kind of a gap between politics and religion, some states more or less. But every society has a civic religion, a sort of set of saints and demons. And in our society, we could say like the Fourth American Republic, kind of ushered in by FDR. And you can read more about this in Paul Gottfried's work, Anti-Fascism, The Career of a Concept. Yeah. But effectively, the religion of our regime is anti-fascism. Our Satan is one Adolf Hitler. You may have heard of him. And the justification for why we get to rule the world is we saved you all from Satan. And so whenever we have a new enemy, whether it's Putin or Slobodan Milosevic, anyone, they are Hitler, right? And the problem with this particular state religion is it's built on any number of lies, right? It's just rife with them. Not to say necessarily lies about World War II, but to say that it was built on myth. I don't mean, but it's built on lies. And so it came apart. And we see that now, right? That for particularly baby boomers, they were inculcated in this, right? They were born in the good times, time of surplus, and they were thoroughly indoctrinated. And through their entire lives, they have seen that narrative played out over and over again. So for instance, you have, Saint MLK, and then again, Saint Floyd, right? And of course, I'm speaking kind of fast and loosely here, but for that group, those beliefs, right? The correct way the world should be ordered, the correct deferences we should give to, certain ideas or certain groups is very deeply based. It is still sacred and religious to them. And you see that, as I'm sure your viewers have encountered, this sort of religious devotion to certain ideas, which is weird, right? It does things that don't seem sacred for you and I are held very tightly, right? And for those people, presenting an alternative history of, certain world events or disagreeing with certain foreign policy is the same if I, walked in and jumped on the altar of your church, right? It would be horribly offensive. But the problem is, because that civic religion was broken, it couldn't propagate itself effectively. And so with each generation, we sort of saw a copy. And just like if you photocopy a photocopy, you lose some resolution. And let's be honest, another part of it is that material conditions have worsened, right? It is harder for people my age to buy a house than our grandparents by about 7 times, according to the math. And so the bribe that came with that, which is, yes, believe this, and also your life is going to be pretty easy. So don't dig into it too much. That decreased as well. And also, let's be honest, a lot of this myth, particularly the sections about it, which relate to, the virtues of tolerance and diversity and all those sort of things. Well, actually, all of the kind of like leftist, stuff about sexuality, even, they were conceptual, right? If you look at the average baby boomer, sure, he may have gone a little bit wild at Woodstock or equivalent, but by age 30, he's a yuppie, right? He's got a wife and he's got kids, and he never really lived that out to the fullest. But it created downstream consequences.